Howdy, folks.
Hi there.
We're trying a whole new lighting setup, so we're excited to see how this works. We get excited about things like that. I know probably doesn't mean a thing to most people out there, but
We
we'll
had a
see.
friend who lives in a nearby mountain town who said when he was young he used to fantasize about naked hot tub orgies, and now that he's old, all he cares about is getting down to the local coffee shop in the morning for coffee and biscuits.
Right, yeah. Well, whatever.
Your priorities shift.
But I mean, think about it this way. If life was always the same, if you had the same interests for your entire life, wouldn't it get kind of boring? I mean, isn't it good to have like growth and change and shifting priorities? I mean, isn't that a good
growth
thing?
and rotting? Maybe there's a tiny instant where you pause before you go into decline.
Yeah, so it's like,
I don't know about that.
yeah, life is a matter of finding where that exact instant is and trying to hold on to it as long as possible.
That's
We read a book review in the New York Times this morning about, they actually reviewed two books about philosophers as a little special. And it was interesting. The very first line of the review, I had to stop and read it again out loud just to savor the meaning of this sentence, so to speak. And that was that every philosophy student, by the time they apply to graduate school for philosophy, have learned that it's not only tacky to be interested in the meaning of life, it is actually threatening to your career to actually be interested in something so arcane and so, just so minor and trivial as something like the meaning of life.
What are you, some sort of religious fanatic or something?
Right, like that's something that we've left behind as we've progressed
Oh, yes.
in philosophy and in the matters of the intellectual realm. Is worrying about things, such trivialities as why do we exist?
I'm sure that's why existentialism is so popular, in vogue. You just be, you just live today.
Right.
Don't worry about the big questions.
Right.
Embrace your ignorance. It's like a gussied up version of the noble savage theory, seems to me.
Well, yeah, I mean it's
Ignorance is never bliss. That's one of our that's a cornerstone of our work.
But it seems to me one of the real keys to why philosophy has become so irrelevant to most people's lives is, a discipline that's supposed to be about, what else is philosophy about but meaning? And the questions of meaning, so to speak. And
that's what this show's about.
And yet philosophers, as a profession, aren't interested in meaning at all. They're interested in parsing the, logic or parsing language or
intellectual gunslinging, I call it.
Yeah. So,
building a fortification that is invulnerable and thereby establishing its credibility or something. I'm not sure. Well, we do that with our work. You can't, like take metaphysics, or take religion, Christianity posits a God of love, but yet the same God, apparently most Christians don't have any trouble with violence. As long as it's on the right side, you can fry someone on an electric chair or carpet bomb them. That's a contradiction, and that really isn't allowed in logic.
Right.
So our work is very much about love, what love is, and why we hold love as synonymous with a state of sanity. It is sanity. We define love as the experience of unconditional acceptance of what is. To really experience acceptance for what is right before you is not only the optimum state of survival, but it's a state of almost like a state of rest. You're not in a fight-flight mode anymore, the psychological equivalent of that.
Right.
You're not rejecting reality, and you're not running from it. You're not avoiding it. Rejecting it is the fight equivalent, and running from reality, or is like the parents of that kid out in Tucson. Oh, I don't want to talk about that, but I'll say that you have a problem in your hands and you keep hoping it'll go away. I love you. I love you. This is a recording.
Yeah.
That's flighting from reality, running from it. So, and we congratulate ourselves. We haven't had anybody punch a hole in our work yet. So we think it. Oh, look, question of meaning cat.
Hey, sweetie.
Hey there. You want to come say hello to the folks? It's kind of crowded in here today.
Yeah.
Sorry, you have to be on the TV next week. Try calling our number sometime and give us something to talk about. Some subject you'd like to hear us rap on.
Yeah, and actually we'll be at Firestorm Cafe 2 days after this show first airs on February 5th. So, come there and engage us in conversation, or suggest some topics of conversation. Definitely.
Our number is 808-8014. Pick it up, call. You're going to get a message. This is not a live show, but leave a message, and we will definitely address it on the air. Speaking of which, were we finished with that early wrap? Can we move?
Sure.
Because I was thinking about a comment we had from a viewer who said, of course we have free will, because if you watch this show with any regularity at all, you know that we consider free will the inflated subjective mind's greatest invention, used to torture us and justify all sorts of horrendous things like self-hatred, self-blame, which is shame. And we blame ourselves and we're ashamed of things we've done because we thought we did it out of free will choice, so we blame everybody else and act accordingly. Jesus was talking about that, Christians. That's when he said, love your enemies. Don't forgive them. And the forgiveness that he talked about was really compassion, understanding someone else and why they were driven to do that. And yes, they're dangerous, and no, they shouldn't be turned loose if they're violent felons. But you don't put them in an animal cage. That statistic we saw of all the sheriffs, the chief of police said that, or the head of the prison said that 1 out of every 5 people in jail was insane.
Right.
That's
mentally ill. Let's say that.
Of course, we think 100% of those people are insane, just like us. The only difference is we haven't been caught. The ones that are walking around loose. I can relate to that. In any case, this viewer said that.
Go ahead.
Of course, we have free will. He said, I've seen I've gone into a burning house to pull people out. I've literally done that. Then I've stopped and given aid in a really bad car accident. If I had free will, if I didn't have free will, why did I do that? Why was I compelled to do that? Do you want to take it?
Well, no, go ahead. I was going to answer something else, but keep going.
And the answer, hopefully you're watching, the answer is that your psychological, physiological makeup, who you are, has a big heart. You are that, it's almost a variation of Paul saying, we are saved by grace, not by works. There's nothing you did, nothing you worked diligently on to be the kind of person who would put another's well-being ahead of your own safety and go into a burning house. That's who you are.
Yeah. Lest
any man should boast. My friend, it's your makeup that makes you that way. And you can see on the show, you've got integrity. It shows. It's there. You're a good man. And I'm kind of revealing.
That's okay. It's all right.
More than I meant to reveal. But anyway, the point is, he's on WLOS. Anyway, try to maintain anonymity here. So the point is that you did those things because that's the kind of person you are. There are other people. I broke my leg once in an underground garage. I slipped in oil and went under the car and rainy puddle. And this guy, and I was screaming in pain, and this guy, I was aware of him. I thought, help. He got in his car right next to mine and drove off. Probably thought I'd staged it and I was going to, whatever he thought, that's the kind of person he is. And he has to live with that. He has his reward in full. I hope you still remember being that heartless. But you, my friend, are the way you're made up, your psychological, physiological configuration made maybe that's why there are really no heroes, lest any man should boast, to quote Paul again. That's
Right.
who you are, and be grateful. And
That's the word that came up for me was gratitude for being that kind of person, that it is a gift. And
so you didn't choose to do that. You didn't have any choice. Who you are did it.
right. And
You
that's when we
did
say
it.
that, pride and shame are two sides of the same free will coin. That the consequence of believing that you choose the actions and the thoughts in your life freely means of all the bad things you did, you're ashamed of, and all the good things you did, you're proud of. But it's coming from the exact same belief in free will, and I find it fascinating that pride was labeled the most deadly of the 7 deadly sins by the medieval church, but we think it's good to be proud of yourself. It's good to be that's the whole self-esteem movement, is that we should feel pride in our good deeds, and I think that so our culture has a real hard time with dealing with not being proud, not taking credit for our actions. We think there's something really wrong with that. And that's, I think, maybe we have a lot, when we discuss free will, that's always the part that people have the hardest time with. Giving up shame, okay, I can imagine that. But to give up the credit for the good things I've done, that's like, the things I cling to make me feel okay about myself.
That's
to
right.
hide,
We need it badly.
Yeah, the thin garment to hide, the horrible person inside. And so, I think, confession time again, because
Oh,
you know
boy.
what, this.
Oh, God, let me have a drink. It's just coffee.
You mentioned this, I don't know, in the last few shows you said something about the thing you regretted most in your life. And one of
I
the
did?
things, you just had the viewer think of the thing, something that you regret
Oh,
most
yeah, I
in your
gotcha.
life.
Yeah.
And one of the things that comes up for me is actually linked to this, and so it's kind of like there in my mind. When this viewer talked about having done some heroic things, and probably one of the things I regret most in my life. Arthur and I were together. This is like almost 30 years ago. We had just gotten intoxicated, and we're driving, and we came across a car accident that had just happened, and we were the first people there, but we were so high.
We weren't the first people there. I remember there was this young kind of hippie woman who was standing in the middle of the road just looking around like
Yeah, but anyway,
tractor trailer had
it was a
crushed a
bad
car.
accident.
It was in the ditch. Nobody was alive in that car.
but we were so intoxicated and just drove by, because it was like we could not handle it. We were just not in the consciousness state to handle. But it was an amazing selfishness on my part. It was the only time I've ever gone by an accident that had just happened where my presence would really have made a difference.
And other cars were stopping and people were getting
Yeah.
out. Weather would have been alone, because I knew somebody in California. They were tripping on acid. They were coming down from Oregon. And they came across this really terrible accident that just happened. And they got out and were trying to deal with these people. They were tripping on acid,
Yeah.
and like they were bleeding. And she said, and they didn't look real. They looked like ghosts. And they were just like,
Yeah, so I'm sure that was how we rationalized it. Was, well, because of our state, we may not really be of much help, but it's obviously this has stuck with me. It's like, as I said, almost 30 years ago, and at the same time, I feel really guilty about
yeah,
this.
what does it say about you?
That my selfishness is practically off the charts. That's what it says to me.
Inhuman. I'm caring like the guy beside me when I fell.
Yeah,
Just,
right.
you. By the way, I didn't sue anybody.
Right. But, it was like you brought him up. Well, here's somebody that actually did something of that nature. And, so, yeah, I feel really, really guilty about that. And like there's that. So when I hear somebody talk about doing those kind of heroic deeds, that just kind of turns the knife a little bit. Like, wow, the time you really, were called upon to do something of that nature, you booted it. And so
apply our formula,
Right.
which is the existent, the present, psychological, physiological configuration that is you interacting with particular external stimuli. If you could crunch all the data, there's no way you were going to stop. You weren't going to stop at the Big Bang. I mean, all you are is you drove by. Your driving by was predetermined 14,000 billion years ago. No, 14,000 million years ago.
Right.
And that's who you were. And to blame yourself for that is like saying, you know, I mean, I wear leg braces. It's like I should feel guilty for not jogging more, which is basically impossible for me.
Right.
So, so blaming yourself for that is like blaming yourself for breathing. Pardon me for breathing. You literally might as well say that. And you can notice what happened, and you can be on guard against that again, like maybe not being intoxicated in a car, which really is a good idea. Whether
not being, I think.
Yeah, not being. I mean, looking at that.
Yes.
Which
I think I have.
Not only alcohol, but smoking a joint. You're still intoxicated.
Right, which is actually more the intoxication we were under at that time.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
At least.
Right. So, no, I think that was all we were doing at that period. But anyway, it doesn't matter, right? So, and some people would be sitting out there thinking, oh man, these people are so rationalizing. You know, that this is all just sophistry to hide the fact that they feel guilty. And this is how they try to soothe their, you know, their feelings of shame and
other than years of
self-hatred.
painstaking examination of the notion of free will and finding out, you know what, folks, it don't exist. This is a great, you know, try to do something spontaneous. Do something, you know, or, I mean, I just did that because I thought that might look spontaneous. That was my existent physiological, psychological configuration, an external stimuli, the temperature in the room, the barometric pressure, the low pressure coming up out of the Gulf, menacing us with snow even as we speak. And that absolutely predetermined that gesture that was supposed to look spontaneous. There's nothing spontaneous. We're momentum flying through space.
Well, you know, what happens is we have a thought in our mind, and we then act on that thought.
Let me demonstrate spontaneity.
Or we don't act on that thought. Like, I think, you know, my nose itches, I'm going to scratch it. Okay? So people that believe in free will would say, well, you had the freedom to either scratch your nose or not scratch your nose after you've had that thought. And, you know, but we love the Albert Einstein quote where he talks about, you know, I have people who talk about the freedom of the will, they say, like, I have this idea to scratch my nose, but where does that idea come from?
So I don't understand the willing.
Right.
I will myself to do something, but I don't understand where freedom comes into that.
Right, because where does the idea of scratching my nose come from? That is you know, there's so many unconscious processes going on in our minds, in our bodies, that are the true source of our thoughts, of our feelings. And not to mention the fact that we don't even know what reality is. We have no clue what's going on around us. And there's this immense forces that we are completely unaware of. We have this tenuous grasp in our minds that allows us to do things like, you know, put my finger to my nose. But to believe that that somehow I sat here and freely decided to scratch my nose is preposterous.
I got a good one.
Okay.
Think of a habit you've got, a habit you would like to stop doing, or maybe a habit you would like to initiate, to cultivate.
Right.
Like working out.
Yeah, this
at the
is
gym.
January. We're still thinking of New Year's resolutions, yeah.
The trouble you're having with that is why you don't have free will. You're on a diet, or you're trying to quit smoking, and you pick a fight so you can justify rushing to the convenience store and buying another, God knows how much they are now, $5 a pack. A sin tax. Syntax. That's a good one.
Syntax. It is a syntax. That's right.
So you're not in control of that. There are powerful psychological forces that most of us are completely unaware of. They're absolutely running our lives.
That's right.
our taste, our beliefs, our instant judgment, our the way we isolate ourselves and only hang around people who agree with us.
Oh, and the list of cognitive biases, if you want to kind of blow your mind, just go to Wikipedia and type in cognitive biases. And you will, I mean, the list is enormous of the ways that our brains not malfunction, that's not really the right word, but how our thinking processes are skewed in all these different ways so that we take raw material and spit it out in inaccurate conclusions.
By the time we become aware of something, we've already judged it, labeled it, and we're half seeing
So our
it.
conscious mind is like, you could say it's like the iceberg. 95% of what's going on is completely buried in the unconscious, and there's this 5% up here poking up, and we think that's it. We think that's all that's going on, but that's just like the frosting on the cake, and that just takes the real matter of what's driving us, and makes it look like that we have control, makes it look like we have freedom to choose, makes it look like we're the ones that are making the decisions, where it's all being driven from underneath.
That we're in touch with reality, I thought you were going to say.
That's a good
Someone
one.
who is out of touch with reality is said to be insane.
Right.
Or mentally unwell, mentally challenged,
Right.
a special person.
Arthur, you didn't hit the timer. That was
I
one thing we
did not hit
changed.
the timer.
Yeah, that's good, Arthur.
It is good, but what we could do maybe is look at the counter on that. Does that have a counter going? Yes, it does. Can you,
Yes, of course.
synchronize that with the counter?
I can do with the math. Okay, we've been going 22 minutes. Okay.
22 minutes and how many seconds before you sit back down?
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't?
Doesn't matter. No.
Okay.
We'll
We can always
find it.
pad it with something.
So
Out of touch with
37.
reality. Thank you very much. So, I never do.
In
that.
addition
That's
to
not
the
my,
lighting
that's not my
thing.
department.
That's right.
That's supposed to go over there. That's supposed to be over there. Yeah. So, just how about physical reality? That Monty Python song again. Just remember that you're standing on a planet that's evolving, revolving right now as we speak at 900 miles an hour.
That's just the
Basic. It's just for starters.
yeah.
It's orbiting at 19 miles a second, so it's reckoned. The sun that is the source of all our power.
So we're like turning and circling at the
Spinning
same
and
time.
orbiting.
Right.
The spinning, that's like, oh, the sun's coming up, spin. Oh, it's going down, spin.
Right.
Now, the sun and you and me and all the stars that we can see are moving at 1 million miles a day. In an outer spiral arm at 40,000 miles an hour, the galaxy we call the Milky Way.
That doesn't even take into account the expansion of the universe.
Our galaxy itself contains 100,000 million stars. 100 billion stars, in other words. It's 100,000 light years. 6 trillion miles times 100,000. It's 100,000 light years wide.
It bulges.
It bulges in the middle, 16,000 light years thick. But out by us, it's just 3,000 light years wide.
We're 30,000.
We're 30,000 light years. You should.
No,
We're 30,000 light years from galactic central point. We go round every 200 million years. Should I just stop here? I mean, get it? I mean,
you
that's
could have stopped with the first
Yeah.
one for me.
Do you feel like you're sitting on your sofa right now or in your chair moving at 900 miles an hour? That's just for starter.
No, 900 miles an hour.
Yeah, did I say that?
I don't know, but 900 miles an hour. I mean, going 75 miles an hour down the interstate feels fast to me. I can't even imagine that I am currently moving at 900. But why do I feel so? That's relativity. Why we feel like we're not moving, because everything's moving. But that's the point. That's reality. Reality is we are moving at that Do you feel like you're moving? No, you're out of touch with reality. That's the point
Conservatives,
here.
you don't like change?
That's a good one.
Let's go back to the Gilded Age. When,
That's right. People knew their place.
That's right, women included.
That's right.
Where did that come from? Sorry.
Well, because you know what, Arthur did one wonderful thing. Actually, he said, people had come up to us and said, "Well, Katie, I'm glad to see you're getting a word in edgewise," and Arthur hated that. Arthur, he's a dominating personality, but he's also filled with passion for this subject, which means that when he gets the chance, he will just talk until somebody,
shoots him.
Well, until somebody else has something interesting to say, and that he considers, of equal value. So,
That sounds rather arrogant, doesn't it?
yeah, but I think there's also truth to it. So, but the point is, he said to me, I want you to step up to the plate, Katie, because I have this part in me that will play the weakling, that will play the put upon woman. I played that for years, and I've talked about how I've been coming out of that. Well, Arthur says, I want you to keep coming out of that, because I don't want people out there in TV land thinking I'm dominating you, because I want you to have an equal say on this show.
Classic male-female relationship. Saint, monster, Godzilla, Joan of Arc, or whoever.
Because for the people who haven't watched long enough to know, Arthur, and because some people think we're just like friends who do this for fun together, but that's not true. We are we're married, as a matter of fact. I was going to say we're in a relationship, but we've actually been married. So yes, that we have that nature of relationship. And
It's very destructive. That's a complete lie,
yes,
too.
yes.
Women either, be happy or get moving or kick him out, whatever it takes. Jeez. Unless there's leg irons or a gun involved, get the hell away from it. If it's, that's easier said than done. You get stuck, especially, it's like we think everybody gets what they want on one level. You're wandering through the world looking for a particular kind of person. Like there was an interesting documentary on pimps once that this pimp said you can walk into a party, you walk into a disco, and you spot her immediately. She's looking for the ultimate experience of degradation and enslavement. There's a kick she's looking for that only being a prostitute, giving your money from a extremely,
Yeah.
I don't even know what the word is. I don't want to be judgmental, but it's, I think if we lived in a society where, I think if we lived in a society that was enlightened, there would be no need for prostitution anymore. If we still did have sex, it would be as casual as having somebody over for dinner. This monogamy nonsense,
Yeah,
this
but I
deification of a couple, unless you really...
But prostitution, I can make ice cream at home. Or I could go to a place that really specializes in gourmet ice cream, and I'm willing to pay for what they do because they really, they have it's their specialty. Well, I could see prostitution would be like that.
You radical hippie.
So there'd be some people, men and women, who were just really, really good at it. Yep. And you were willing to pay, and it was okay. It would be the same as going to the ice cream parlor.
But now there's such a cachet of shame and, I use the word degradation.
That's
right.
How
it's,
Right.
Stop saying, getting into cars with complete strangers in this culture and this sicko culture, where everybody's raised that basically, I don't care how enlightened you think this modern age is, sex is dirty, sinful, wicked. I mean, you can see every kind of violence on television, bloody chunks flying through the air. What kind of shows do we like? Autopsy, CSI, Medical Examiner, just wallowing in gore. But a healthy love of sex that makes people feel good? No. Insinuated, titillated, if you will.
Yeah, I like that word.
definitely you'll never see anything graphic in this puritanical, crazy culture.
You know what? I'd like to,
where are we with this?
Well, we're kind of freewheeling around.
Yeah, freewheeling again.
But
it's you know what?
You mentioned The Viewer, And we're talking about some of his
See,
his
call in
issues.
808-8014. Give us something to talk about, and we'll talk about it on the show. Here's an example right now. Free will doesn't
fun.
exist. It's a horrible and the worst invention.
Well, one of the
perhaps.
things that really, set him off on this particular call. This has been a subject he's called us a number of times on this exact point of free will. But one of the things that really, I think, upset him was we were talking about Jared Loughner and the Tucson shootings, and we use the phrase "innocent by reason of insanity" because that's the name of this book we're working on. We are all innocent by reason of insanity.
All, no
and I
exceptions.
believe it's the word innocent, in particular there. And actually, I've been doing some reading, and I do want to change the way I talk about it because the legal phrase is not guilty by reason of insanity. I don't believe in the, at least for a long time in this country, no one called it innocent. They called it was not guilty. And there's a bit of a shade of difference there, I think. And we really think that, that there should be a responsible by reason of insanity. And actually Arizona has a guilty by reason of insanity, which means you did it, but you're insane. So there's a level of culpability that we cannot ascribe to you.
But we don't like the connotation of the word guilt at all.
Right.
It's like if an old person's driving to, one of those farmers markets in Florida where the old guy had a medical event, like the bus driver here in Asheville.
Right.
He went into convulsions behind the wheel and hit, and terrible things happened. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't his fault. Now, even if he was rationalizing being on medication that clearly said you shouldn't be behind the wheel. Right. Or was kidding himself, that understandable desire to remain independent, you have to give up your driver's license, all that stuff. It's still, that's the existent psychological, physiological justification in endangering other people's lives. How many people out there use their goddamn cell phone when they're driving? How many times do I have to see a stupid person drifting across the lanes, endangering my life because your freaking phone call is so important that you can't pull over? You've justified and you've rationalized it. I've never had an accident. I know what I'm doing.
Well, most of us think we're the exception to the rule. I'm sure that's one of the cognitive biases.
Amen, sister.
I'm the exception.
You got it. So I didn't mean to pull you away with that. We were talking about the objection to, a good point, objection to innocent.
Right, because
I'm wholly blameless. I didn't do anything.
Right, because I understand the desire to say, yes, you did these things. That's, and that's really not what we mean by the word innocent. What we mean by the word innocent is that a person couldn't have done anything else. Right. And the forces that are driving us that are so, like I was saying about the iceberg, that we are not in control. And if you are not in control of what goes on, then you are innocent in that sense.
Okay, as
Jesus said, forgive them, for they know not what they do.
Yeah, better yet, let he or she who is not crazy cast the first stone. Right. Of course, that's the whole thing. There are people out there right now thinking anybody could do anything and get away with it. No, you can't. Get away with it unless you find a trip to jail like a pleasant experience, or maybe suicide by cop if you break the law enough. You get to the armed standoff point. You're crazy. All this is saying that you have mental forces that are beyond your control. They are running your life. They could run your life like respectability. You could be the perfect church-going, tax-paying pillar of the community, and be absolutely out of control with your life. You are compelled to be that way. Just like one person is compelled to charge the front lines, or compelled to go into a burning house or save people in a car accident, other people are compelled to gossip, compelled to feel superior to other people. I'm not preaching. I feel all this stuff myself. And it's a lie. There's psychological forces, stuff that we made up when we were infants, that are still predetermining our reaction to anything at any time. I didn't realize that until I took a psychotropic drug when I was 28 years old and experienced life for a few hours without that value judging everything in reality. And I was a long-haired hip guy playing music in San Francisco in 1971, 72, somewhere in there. And changed my life forever. Because when all that value judgment, all that brilliant, half-witted knowledge, that the threadbare rags that posed as really knowing anything were taken away like a cataract operation. And I saw what physical reality, objective reality, trees, dirt, rocks, water, rain looked like. Matchless perfection, incredible refinement of senses, incredibly more beautiful and perfect that I, the nature lover, had never even dreamed of. So the normal state, the state that happened before I ingested that drug, that's insane. That wasn't seeing reality at all. That was lost in mental space. And I thought I was hip.
So
I even thought I was in a happy relationship.
So I was thinking of talking about the programming of the mind as analogous to programming of computer software. You know, we always use whatever technology we are up to describe reality. I mean, you know, that in the Enlightenment they called it the clockwork universe. So, but I mean, we believe that our minds are programmed when we were infants from our surroundings, what our parents teach us, not just in what you think of as instruction, but how our parents see reality, their worldview is conveyed to us through the way they talk, how they react. You know, in school, same thing goes on. We are indoctrinated into our culture and programmed to think in certain ways. And this is what is, some people end up being heroic and saving people from running into a burning building. And some people shoot up a congresswoman's meet and greet. And that is because of the way their minds were programmed from birth with these thoughts. And what we're arguing here is because I took a course in computer programming back when I was in college. And when you're writing a computer program, you write lines of code and then you test it and you put in some numbers and, you know how you want it to come, you know, what the correct answer is. So if you write some code that's going to just do something really basic, like do a calculator function. So I write the code to make it a calculator work, and then I put it into the computer and I put in 2 times 3. And if my computer code spits out 10, I don't curse the program, the software program. I don't condemn it as evil. I don't say, it's horrible and bad. I just realize the programming is flawed and I need to reprogram it. So I go in and I look for the lines of code that are incorrect, and I fix those until I get to the point where when I put 2 times 3 and it comes out 6. And so we're saying that that's the same thing with somebody who's mentally ill. Their programming something has gone wrong in the programming, and they are putting things together wrong. And so they think of, and I read this great.
I dislike a person who's mentally ill. Let's talk about
everyone.
us.
Okay, well, I'm okay. I was all right. Well, I was just thinking of this. God, I can't think of the name of it, but it was a book about dictators. And this guy had really looked into 7 dictators, like Baby Doc and who was it in Idi Amin, and people of that ilk. And in every single case, they believed that what they were doing had been good for their country.
George W. Bush.
I don't know. But they believed that what they had done, they had saved their country. They were their country's savior. We look at them and think, these guys are evil. But in their minds, they sincerely believed that they had saved their country from some disaster, civil war, or external control by a
You
colonial
really think
power.
that? You said that
Yes,
before, and
I
I
do.
find it really difficult to believe that a pig doesn't really know that they've got their boot heel on the people. And it's what the people they justify it like. The masses need to be controlled. These people, they'll have a revolution.
You don't think the guys that get
but
huge
they'll
bonuses?
hold themselves as big heroes of the country,
Yes,
but they justify, like death squads and disapparados or whatever they call them.
You don't think the guys that are getting those huge bonuses at Goldman Sachs later this month or next month don't think that they've actually are the ones that keep the economy going? They think they're
Masters of the
heroes.
universe.
They think they're heroes, and they deserve that money. I believe they do, and that's the thing. That's why we're innocent, because this thing up here is a rationalization machine that follows that programming that we've had, and can, no matter what the circumstances, we can come up with a reason for why we're correct. And we can say,
from the child molester
yes,
to Idi Amin.
That's right. And it's the reason we're innocent is because it's the machinery is flawed. The rationalization machinery has somehow been programmed in a way that rationalizes horrendous deeds. But
Okay, so
that
what do we
doesn't
do
mean
about
that
it?
inner person is evil or wrong.
So what, you got any more to say about that?
Well, no, you go ahead.
No, I don't know. What? I mean,
Well, okay, so what is it? So yes, it's the machinery. So if the software of our minds, logical machinery is not working correctly, I would say what mental health counseling for everyone. I mean, but
which would take 1 billion years and cost millions of lives from Animal House. I mean, this sounds so conceptual. I'm getting a little bored, I confess it.
All right.
I'm tired of conceptual theories. What about loneliness? Are you lonely? I am. I'm lonely as hell. I don't have any freaking friends. You know why? Because I'm obsessed with this subject, and people don't like to be around it. Very candidly. People do not like to be around it. I mean, I think it's a great message, universal insanity. I think it actually finally explains what the hell is wrong with the human race. It's like discovering a hidden virus. I quote Mark Twain again because this really says it. When we remember we are all mad, the mysteries disappear and life stands explained. Still throwing coconuts at each other. Still want to gimme, build up as much as I can. The one that with the most toys, the one that dies in the most toys wins. Infantile, primitive, savage, and inevitable phase of human evolution, craziness. But it explains it. It explains why we're lonely and why we're jealous and why we're covetous and why we can't get along with each other. And why we gossip, and why we whine, and why life is never quite good enough. It's not satisfying. There is no peace. That's why the handful, for thousands of years in the East, they had a much better handle on it than we did in the West, because we managed to completely screw up what Jesus was saying, our Judeo-Christian metaphysics. That you have to retire from the world. You can still participate in the world, but you're not engaged in it like giving it maximum credibility or going through life with the idiotic presumption that you know what the hell you're doing. Or every time you look in the mirror, you know what that is that's staring back at you. Because you know what? You don't. I guarantee you don't. And don't give me your history. Don't tell me what you do for a living. Don't tell me where you were born. And don't tell me what your parents said. I couldn't care less. It's not relevant. What's really relevant is when you really look, you have no idea what that is in the mirror looking back at you.
So what does that mean?
That means you're not remotely in control of your life. The way, if you don't even know who you are,
well, you talked
what the
about
hell else do you know?
Well, you talked about getting away from conceptual things.
Well,
And that's
I think
why
that's
I'm
pretty
asking
down
you.
to earth. I mean, I relate to that. I hardly look in the mirror anymore.
Yeah. Well,
Sometimes I go
that.
months without looking. And I know. That's Groundhog Day again.
Right.
Because there it is, the act, the lifelong performance, the whole history, the whole shebang staring back at you. And I wish I could get rid of that zit. And I wish I could lose some weight. And I wish I wasn't getting as many gray hairs as I say. And I wish I could I wish I could live this philosophy more than talk about it. I wish I could actually experience it more. I wish I didn't live in Dixieland. I wish I didn't live in the United States, and it's not too far from. I wish I didn't live on this planet anymore. That's all me. That's the kind of stuff I think about.
Mm-hmm.
For many a time I have been half in love with easeful death, called him soft names in many a mused rhyme. Now more than ever seems it rich to die, to take upon the hour, to take upon the midnight my quiet breath. To cease, I'm sorry, mangled it, to cease upon the midnight with no pain, please. Hold the pain.
And whose poem is that?
Keats.
I only know it from the movie The Loved One.
Yes, they told me, Francis Hensley, they told me you were hung with red protruding eyeballs and black protruding tongue. I wept as I remember how often you and I had laughed about Los Angeles, and now 'tis here you'll lie. Here, pickled in formaldehyde and painted like a whore, shrimp pink, incorruptible, not lost or gone before.
Yeah, no, that's my kind of poetry.
The Loved One, great, hilarious satire on the American lifestyle, and particularly the funeral industry. Good cynical Brit takes on America. Chief embalmer of Whispering Glades was named Mr. Joy Boy. Get the message? See where this is going?
You know, it just for whatever reason that just made me think of the.
Look at that picture on the screen. Isn't that gorgeous?
It made me think of the drunk monkeys. We just happened to. Actually, Arthur was looking at a video of ours online, and next to it, on top, was this drunk monkeys video, which then actually happened to be in the news later that day, which was an interesting synchronicity.
What a synchronicity happening lately.
And then it turns out this had originally been posted on YouTube 2 years ago. So however that worked out. But anyway, one of the things that was interesting, if you haven't seen it, it's very interesting. It's a Caribbean island where these velvet monkeys
brought over from Africa
have
with the slaves.
Yeah, have gotten to where they steal drinks from tourists sunning on the beach, and so people have investigated, why do monkeys drink, and they drink at the same rates that humans do. It's like virtually identically, statistically, who is the teetotalers, who are the social drinkers, and who are the flat out alcoholics. And so that they say that this proves that alcohol consumption is very genetically based. But what was interesting to me, and one of the things I should say that was interesting to me about it, was that in the monkey world, the drunks were leaders.
I thought too. I was going to hoping you mentioned that.
Yeah, that's what. And I thought, well, that's interesting because we have such a negative attitude towards. And they're not talking the social drinkers. They're talking the fall down. I mean, these guys, monkeys, they would fall down.
Loaded.
I mean, loaded. But that did not disqualify them from being a monkey leader. It actually qualified them.
What were they telegraphing in their drunken behavior, you think, that gained the respect of the...
Yes.
Do they provide amusement to the moderate drinkers, or what do you think it was?
Risk-taking, maybe?
Yeah, because I was just looking at the whole idea of booze. I mean, the reason I drank is just to make the pain go away. Mm-hmm. It takes the sting of gravity and unhappiness and this country.
Well, I liked something you said last night, which was we were talking about play, and I had just read this book where the sociologist suggested that one of the aspects of a real what she called a wholehearted life was play, having play part of your ordinary life, and the way Arthur put it last night was so wonderful about how Can you remember how you said it about as children, we play naturally.
It was in the context of insanity. I was going. There was an Ingalls truck with these three little girls,
Right.
Laughing and eating apples. I think just having a big time and acting silly. And I
Right.
thought, yeah, when you're really young, when you're a smaller child, it's okay just to be silly and foolish and act up and do outlandish things and laugh at all of it, laugh at reality. But the older you get, the farther you progress on that conveyor belt, you start having to act cool and with it. I mean, God knows what age that starts at now.
Yeah.
And you're sophisticated and you know it all. And by the time you're an adolescent, college, it's like you're steadily compacted. There's less ability to really be foolish.
That's right. Less freedom
you have to
in
act
your movements.
serious. And,
Right.
one of the first things I noticed when I was a kid, one of the real shortcomings of adults was they obviously were not having a very good time. And,
Right.
The rare times that they'd get out on the floor and play with you and tussle with you and act silly, it was just like heaven. But it was very rare that happened.
That's right. So to bring it back to the alcohol, what Arthur, what came out in our conversation was that maybe that's one of the reasons that alcohol is so attractive, is because you have a license to act silly
Right.
when you're drunk. That it removes that inhibition about that adults should not be silly. And then when you are silly, you can say, well, I was drunk. You have something that you can blame it on, so you don't have to claim the silliness for your own. And it's like, what if we changed as a culture and we said it was okay for adults to be silly, and you don't need the crutch of alcohol to be silly? And what would that do? Because I noticed it was one of the things I really loved about Arthur. And I say it in the past tense, kind of sadly, and I reckon this is one of the things I really pulled out of this book, was that's one thing that's missing in our relationship, and I'd like to see about changing it, is play. When we were younger, we used to, we go to the grocery store and we'd play football with the paper towels, I mean.
How do you play football with a paper towel?
In the grocery store? You would throw it to me down the aisle? You don't remember doing that?
No. What do you mean, ball up a paper towel?
No, I'm sorry. In the grocery store, in the paper towel lane,
yeah.
you take a paper
actual
towel,
roll of
the
paper
roll
towels.
of paper
I
towel,
got
and
it.
you
Yeah.
throw it. And
Go out for a long one. Yeah.
Yeah, we
Right.
would do that. That was like normal at the grocery store behavior.
Somebody actually came up to us once and said, he was like the manager of the store. It was in Ingalls again.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
And I said, I want to ask you a question. He looked kind of embarrassed to be doing this. He said, but are you always happy? Are you people always happy? My daughter was with us during that period.
Yeah, he said, he introduced it by saying, we've been talking. It was like people that work there had talked about us.
Because we were always acting silly.
Right.
And crazy.
That's right. And he and his daughter, oh my God, they were a real, because I'd grown up in the Midwest and there was not a silly bone in my body. And I still have a real problem with this. I take life very seriously. And if I'm not filling every minute of my day with something productive, I feel like I'm wasting time. And it's a real problem for me. And it's helped kill the play in our relationship. And I can see where it's really hurt us. It's hurt Arthur in particular, because he is, you should... You should hear him with a friend of his on the phone. They laugh and just do all sorts of silly stuff on the phone. And I've expressed to her, I'm really grateful to her for giving Arthur that outlet that, he doesn't have with me so much.
You get old. You also get old.
Yeah.
You get tired of it. You get bored with it. I'm bored. I'm basically bored with this country, with this, it's a time in evolution. It's absolutely perfect. I got that intellectually. But I wish sometimes that I could just go be a fool on a hill somewhere and just give up the business scams and making freaking money,
yeah,
the meaning of life, a ridiculous overhead, and just go to Mexico somewhere and quietly rot in some whitewashed room and never be compelled to do anything ever again. I'm not only am I spoiled, which I certainly am, but I part of being spoiled is I think life should be fun. I think it should be fun. It should be play. It should not be slogging effort to survive.
Right.
And taking it all so seriously and heavy. But then I'm also such a screwed up person that I had to work diligently to develop a philosophy that explained to my satisfaction exactly why I've been so crazy, why my life has been so full of pain and loneliness. I expect so much. What is that? And what I came up with is we're crazy, folks. At this stage in evolution, namely the entire history of the human race, we're insane. And all the wonderful things we've done are the lesser part of the part of the mind that is least utilized, and more. It's the part of the mind that is optimized to relate to objective reality, objectively, which is wisely, which is sanely, which is all the gifts of science, are in that. The objective mind. Whereas the subjective mind, that is a damn price tag hanging from everything you're looking at right now. From I should change that sofa to I should really wash those couch cushions to whatever. It's constant evaluation of reality. If you could strip that off for just 1 second, you would be in paradise. You would see that objective reality is absolutely perfect the way it is. Matchlessly beautiful. Limitlessly fascinating, but it's the evaluation. When I say I'm bored with it, there's no rush. You know what that's coming from?
Right.
Complete madness, insanity. It's a tricky road here. You can sit there at home and judge us and say we're crazy and hyper obsessed with what's going on. And, who needs to know that? Like a friend of ours who was talking to this person that he knew that he was trying to tell him about a way of interpreting deliverance that he'd never thought about before, and the guy looked at him and said, "Who gives a shit? Let's go get a beer." I mean,
right.
We've been told that forever.
That's
what
right.
an incredible waste of time, you two. I mean, save your breath. No, I'm the kind of guy that likes to know what's going on. I'm like Don Corleone. He insists on hearing the bad news right away. That's me. I'm not satisfied with going through life really kidding myself that I know my ass from an elbow, because that was destroyed when I was 28 years old in that psychedelic experience. I don't know my ass from my elbow. And I could point to my elbow on the other part, but I don't know what that is. I don't know what that is. Neither do you. You know enough to get by if this is good enough for you. I mean, if this is the way you want life to be, is just wake up, go to work,
Yeah, but
come home 5 days a
that's
week,
one thing in the S
save
training.
for your retirement.
That may be my elbow, but
Okay, what is
how
that?
do I? Right.
What is your elbow?
How do I do that? Could I tell you how I just moved so that you
Don't
can see
even
my
get
elbow?
don't even get fancy. What is that? What's your elbow? tell us. I mean,
I'm just laughing at how little I know.
you've done it. Human
Well,
anatomy.
there's a
and
bone there.
dissection. What is that?
There's a bone there.
Yeah.
And that's a bone.
A joint, correct? It's a large
Right,
joint,
it's a joint,
flexible
right.
joint.
Right.
And what else is in there?
Well, I'm sure there's cartilage and there's
Tendons.
right, that attach the muscles to the bone. But that's
that-
not the elbow itself.
Yeah, well, so the elbow is it's a collection of cells, perhaps. that's what we reductionize. It's a collection of cells, which is a collection of atoms, which is a collection of molecules, which is a collection of atoms.
No,
which
the
is
elbow. I'll tell you what the elbow is. The elbow is a prop that you can use to hold your head when
In
you have
despair?
a table. That's right. That's what an elbow is. An elbow is something to have on the table for your mother to yell at you about.
An elbow is a reference point for a comparative reference point to your ass or something.
An elbow is a type of macaroni that I like to have with macaroni and cheese, and we haven't had in a while.
The truth is, when you reduce the simplest thing, you reduce it. You don't know what that is. Well, you know what a subatomic particle wave is? No.
You know what? I believe.
I think it's got to be wrong. Would you check again, please?
Okay. What do you mean?
It's gotta be
We've got
wrong.
about a minute. What do you mean it's got to be wrong?
It's a minute left?
A minute left.
Oh, my God. Okay. Firestorm Cafe, 2 nights away, Saturday night. Firestorm Cafe, Saturday night, February 5.
7:30?
And 7:30 to 9:30.
Yeah, and check our website at questionameaning.com. And
Call us up, 808-8014.
And this may be the end. It may not be the end. I think I'm going to get up and check right now, and I might be back for more.
Okay.